Australians are paying more and getting less.
Energy security is economic security. Economic security is national security.
We sit on vast reserves of coal, oil and gas, but we are not fuel secure.
Policy unmoored from physics and economic reality has turned an energy-rich land into a decadent state.
No sector is being asked to bear more than agriculture and regional communities.
We are willfully turning a rich nation into a poorer one.
To keep Australia prosperous, sovereign and free is our duty, and in an uncertain world, our best defence.
And a very good morning. It's a Tuesday morning. Nice to have your company. This is the Country Telegraph, and we're looking at some pretty wild stories today, back with the Brumbies. And I have not slept much at all last night because of what's happened to us in Australia. How can we do this? Happens around the world. You wonder though and in the UK too, they're talking about culling magnificent horses that have been there for centuries. You just wonder where we're heading. If it's to a place that I can see in the future, I don't know whether I want to go there. I think we need to get back to being human, get back to a lot of good and none of this. It's for the good of mankind. It sounds very much like communism, if you ask me. Before we get into our first guest, I just thought I'd go through some of the stories that are making news around Australia. Dononi has struck two major Australian agri-business deals, estimated to be worth more than $15 billion, acquiring Melbourne's Made Group, that's MADE Group, and buying out its Saputo Dairy joint venture. Producers have been left to count the cost of selling cattle early and planting crops in flood-prone paddocks after the Bureau of Meteorology predicted a dry autumn. And then it kept raining. It was my fault. I mentioned the barbecue, cookout, and I also mentioned washing the car. And then it rained. It didn't stop. But we need the rain, don't we? We do need it. Wheat and barley prices have hit parity across Australian markets, wiping out a $30 a tonne premium and leaving growers with no reward for quality. If a federal election was held now, the result would be too close to call between Labor and One Nation, according to fresh polls. And support for Pauline Hanson's party surged by 2% following her National Press Club address, in which she attacked migrants and urged more support for hard-working Australians. If you want to keep up to date with what's happening around Australia, especially regional, rural and outback Australia, make sure you keep watching us or listening to us on Facebook, X, Rumble, and of course, there's another one floating around, just gone, just like that. Anyway, you'll find it. Just keep searching. And also, we're live too, by the way. This is the Country Telegraph. Okay, that's a couple of years old, but Ashley Avis is responsible for that, and very moving to say the least. Ashley Avis is an award-winning filmmaker, journo, and passionate advocate for the wild world. She is known for writing and directing Black Beauty for Disney, starring Oscar winner Kate Winslet and Mackenzie, and the Critics' Choice nominated documentary Wild Beauty, Mustang Spirit of the West, which is just amazing. And we're going to find out shortly more about Ashley. In 2020, Ashley founded the Wild Beauty Foundation to bring a bold new voice to wildlife protection through storytelling, education, and legislative advocacy. Her work has been featured in Time, Deadline, and other major outlets. And in 2023, Ashley received a Special Congressional Commendation, and full marks to her. In addition to filmmaking, Ashley is a journalist with bylines in Rolling Stone, where she writes on the urgent need to protect wild horses and public lands. Her passions include developing new programs for WBF, documenting environmental injustices and introducing children to the natural world. I'm just going to play another one just at the moment because I think this is also important. This goes for about a minute and a bit. It's Mustang Spirit.
They call me the man who listens to horses. My entire life has been shaped by them. Studying their language, learning their unspoken ways, stepping into their world and what they are saying to me, moment to moment. Equus has been my teacher, my friend, and my provider. And he can be yours too, if you will simply listen. I am Monty Roberts. I'm an ambassador for the Wild Beauty Foundation, and I stand with wild horses.
Now, Ashley is in Australia and last week was prevented from filming in the Kosciuszko National Park and cannot return for 7 days. First of all, Ashley, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I sincerely appreciate it.
Tell me what happened.
We were in the park and we were there as journalists to document what is happening on the ground to these Brumbies and the events surrounding this cull. And our team was essentially, I think our presence was noted pretty quickly when we entered the park. When we got out of the vehicles, there was a car that pulled up on the side of the road. Nobody got out. They were just watching us. And then we noted that the rangers were driving back and forth. And then eventually 2 rangers came up and asked what we were doing and promptly asked us to leave. They asked about a commercial filming permit. Obviously, we're not there doing any commercial filming. And they gave us a ban of 7 days, which I thought was pretty extreme for the nature of what was going on.
Well, they're actually have extended it by 2 weeks. It's just, I find this abhorrent. And looking at your videos, we're not alone. Other countries are doing the same thing. I mean, I think one of your videos you mentioned 20,000 horses a year are shipped off for, just for meat and pet food and stuff like that. And then we have in the UK government is now talking about culling these magnificent creatures that have been there for centuries. What's wrong with society?
I think we're so desensitized today, which is very, very very concerning. And I'm so proud of the work that we've been able to do to bring wild horses in the United States to the public, because so few people know that we even have wild horses. We call them our Mustangs, and they're this extraordinary fixture on the Western landscapes in the United States. And they arrest your imagination. You want to go out there with your family and your children to see them. And it's the same thing getting to experience the Brumbies for the brief time I've been able to spend in Australia. It's an extraordinary gift to have these horses with such rich heritage. And for the New South Wales government to be condoning this helicopter cull as a form of humane management is shameful and egregious. This is a violent operation. They are shooting down pregnant mares, foals, stallions trying to protect their families. And as you've seen with our documentary, Wild Beauty, we've documented the helicopter roundups in the United States and our Bureau of Land Management. It's shameful what's happening to our wild horses, just like it's shameful what's happening to the Brumbies in Australia. And the fear and the terror that these sentient, intelligent, emotional, and family-driven horses are experiencing during that helicopter chase before they meet an end. And, for somebody like Jack Groth at the Invasive Species Council to try to justify this as humane, or to try to justify it as though that's a clean shot or series of shots every time and every horse is just going to be felled, is absolutely absurd.
I'm very interested in his organisation, and we're going to, I promise we're going to do some very deep diving. We have another product too, which we are investigative journalists and have been around for quite some time. So as they say, the organisation doesn't, and of course their philosophy doesn't pass the pub test, we would say in Australia. They're saying that these animals are a threat to the environment in the Kosciuszko National Park, along with the other parts of Australia. So they're not alone. They're not just taking the glory themselves. Victoria, they also do the same. Are they really a threat to the national park?
If you look at, I feel like there are some disturbing parallels between the Bureau of Land Management in the United States and what's happening in the Kosciuszko National Park, where the population numbers that they're claiming to be present aren't biologically possible. They said in 2024, the high number of Brumbies in there was a little over 3,900. And they're saying that jumped to a potential high of about 16,000 Brumbies. That's a 300% increase. And it's not biologically possible. So when you have numbers that are that absurd and clearly so fabricated, and then you've got a government and the Invasive Species Council saying and expecting the public to buy that with this repetitive language. There was an op-ed put out this morning that I thought really belittled the individuals fighting for the integrity and the compassion and the heritage of the Brumbies. And my position is, in the United States, or in the little time I've been able to spend in Australia, is that if we want to come to the table and discuss humane management, absolutely, let's do that. We need to look at the Kosciuszko, we need to look at the Western US, so that all of these different species can coexist as a whole, and so that the landscape can indeed be healthy. But that's not the conversation we're really having here. Just like the US, this seems like it is an eradication plan of the Brumbies to get them out of the Kosciuszko. From all of the different incredible advocates and experts that I've been able to speak to, it seems very clear that there are nowhere near these numbers in the Kosciuszko, that there might be less than 1,000 Brumbies. And from what I understand of your wild horse management plan, up to 3,000 can subsist on the land. So I think an independent study and an independent count is absolutely critical, and to give the public the transparency they deserve, and not to just assume everybody is just going to buy into this propaganda that seems like it's a plan to just get the Brumbies out. And I think doing some research into, the Snowy 2 project as well is very interesting, which seems like it would cause a lot more ecological damage than, a couple hundred horses.
It is actually abhorrent, and I go on a lot, by the way, about where are we heading, humanity, because 20 years ago this would not have been tolerated. That 3,000, I think, by the way, last year the New South Wales state government overturned that, and now it's up to this up to this other organisation to determine what is necessary to preserve Australiana. Having said that, the Brumbies are very much part of Australia and have fought in most of the wars, if not all the wars that we have fought in, and when we brought them in here. But here's one of the kickers, and I read somewhere on the report that it said that one of a particular frog species was under threat because of the horses. Now, a couple of things come to mind. I didn't know horses ate frogs. Anyway, maybe they do in Australia. Secondly, the species is under threat because of an import of a virus in about 1847. So I really don't think you could blame the horses for that. And if you look at what's happening around around Kosciuszko, the damage is not being done by the horses. There are other factors involved there. Where do we go from here? How do we? Because I think if everybody had a dose of what you were filming, and had a dose of looking at what's happening at the moment in the Kosciuszko National Park, I think Australia would stop this pretty well instantly. So how do we educate people, get them out of their comfort zone? Because there are many who have noticed this, but legacy media, as per normal, aren't going to upset the boat too much because they do rely on government for favours. How do we get through this censorship and I suppose the blinding of the truth?
There is so much fear nowadays to speak out, and it's important that we climb over that fear, because we're going to lose something very precious if we don't. Wild places and wild species and animals that should be cherished are so rapidly disappearing from our landscapes, whether it's the Brumbies, whether it's the Mustangs, or in our country, the wolves. And I think from our perspective as filmmakers, journalists, bringing the beauty and the cinema and the emotion to the public and saying, look at this for a moment, look at the beauty of this and what you stand to lose. And that's how we've been able to open up the eyes of people in the United States. The Mustangs have a lot of support around the world as we've been fighting for them. We've been very grateful to other partners standing up and saying, let's spread the message and let's protect these horses. And so when I found out what was happening with the Brumbies, I've been following the Brumby issue for years, but it wasn't until recently that I had a fuller understanding of the violence of the cull. And that's what prompted me. I got on a plane within 24 hours after I got a call about 2 weeks ago from the Australian horse trainer from our narrative film Black Beauty. And he as an Australian equestrian, prominent in his space, he had no idea that the aerial cull was happening. And he called me extremely upset. And he said, Ashley, what do we do? And so I spoke to my husband and I said, we've got to go. We've got to go get on a plane now to Sydney. And that's pretty much what we did. So we're very honored to help in any way that we can. And, you know, when you do have a government stripping things, just like ours does with a wild horse management plan that should be, you would think, be based in science. 3,000 sounds like a pretty reasonable number based on the size of the park. The Bureau of Land Management in the States is doing the exact same thing. They will set a number, and most of the time it's arbitrary, but then they can still go in and wipe it out completely. And that's why you have herd management areas in the United States that are complete. They're supposed to be full of wild horses up to a certain figure, but they've been zeroed out and no wild horses exist any longer. And that seems like the path that this current eradication plan is on.
I mentioned before that not only the US and Australia, also in the UK, and the horses have been there for hundreds and hundreds of years, and the Labor government there has decided to just do its bit and cull them. They haven't done it yet. There's a upheaval, but I always find that if government want to do something, it's very hard to stop them, isn't it? I mean, even though if you have protest and not enough protests or voices of dissent, you need to have a great number to actually scare the bejeebers out of the politicians and bureaucrats, because otherwise they're not going to budge at all. They're going to go, well, there they are, the usual complainers, the whingers, as we would say, and they'll go ahead and do it. What do we need? What do you think we need collectively to stop this abhorrent behaviour that is most inhuman?
We need to come together and recognize our collective humanity. Thinking about this issue, thinking about fighting for the wild horses in the States, what came to mind is compassion knows no borders, compassion for animals, compassion for humans. We have to stand together and say, this kind of violence has no place in 2026. And anyone who says shooting down wild horses from helicopters is humane, I think has respectfully a cog missing with just being able to experience normal emotion and humanity. And I challenge anybody that wants to say that's humane, just like I've challenged people in the United States that say sending horses across our borders to get butchered in Canada and Mexico is humane. If you want to take that stance, go ahead and go stand there and watch it. I challenge Jack or Penny Sharp to go down to the Kosciuszko and you stand there, or you get into the helicopter and you watch those families of horses scream as they are shot down, and you tell me that that's humane, and allow us to film it and see if that is something that you still if that's the stance that you're still going to take watching such an abhorrent act of animal violence.
Yeah, for a democratic society, country, basing its values and freedom and right of speech and right of way, we have a very funny way of showing it, don't we?
And it's tragic because your country is so beautiful. And I've wanted to come to Australia since I was a little kid. And I'm so honored to be able to help use our platform to illuminate this issue. But it is something where I think about the United States and certain states in the Western US who have had this black mark cast across them, whether it's the treatment of the wild horses or it's the eradication of the wolves. They do aerial culling on and off with the wolves in Alaska. And there has been public outcry. And I think the more that we can collectively raise our voices and say, this has to stop, it is extremely important for the world to pay attention. Otherwise, there is going to be a black mark cast across Australia for destroying one of its most iconic animals.
And also the humane societies out here, in particular the RSPCA, which I do know of their history and recent history. And let me tell you, their propaganda PR department worked very well indeed. In many cases has no bearing at all on the respect and humane treatment of animals. Do you despair when you see these organisations? Because we're not alone here. If you look around, around the world, they profess to do one thing, and in reality, it's just smoke and mirrors.
Mm-hmm. It's similar parallel, and these issues are hard, especially for those of us that love horses or love these animals. And I also feel in moments like these where this fight is so critical. It's happening now. The cull is happening now. We have to steel ourselves because we don't have the luxury of time to despair. We have to hold on and we have to fight together and say, we're going to do this and we're going to drive forward and we're going to raise international awareness. And we're certainly going to put this issue on the world stage so that we can protect the Brumbies, because what a travesty, what a loss it would be for them to disappear.
Yeah, totally agree. If somebody wants to find out more about what you do or want to pitch in and take the blinkers off and say, okay, Australia, this is going to stop. I'm going to give you my voice. There's a movie, I'm going to play a clip later on, 1976 called Network. And Peter Finch, an Aussie of all things, was in it. And he said he was as mad as hell. And we do need to become as mad as hell, don't we? We need to, instead of saying, oh, that's terrible, and not looking at it. And I've heard many people say, I can't look at the video. I can't watch this. I can't become involved emotionally in this. We have to, don't we?
We do. Silence and inaction is complicity. And if we care about these animals, if we care about keeping the Brumbies free on the range in the park where they belong, for people to enjoy them, from Australian citizens to people around the world who can be inspired by this incredible country, it is our responsibility and it's our duty to speak out.
And an incredible world. We need to also look after that world, whether you're in the US, UK, Asia, anywhere, Europe. If they haven't got that many wild parks and they do things a little bit differently there. How do they find out more about you, Ashley?
They can follow me on Instagram or Facebook, and we have an organization called the Wild Beauty Foundation, which is also on those social channels. We'll be continuing to post content. We've gotten some incredible footage of Brumbies, as well as some interviews from experts that we're continuing to edit, and we'll be putting that content out as we proceed. And very proud to join you in this fight.
Thank you so much, and we're very proud to be with you too. Ashley Avis there, absolutely brilliant. If you can, pop over to Winterstone and the Wild Beauty Foundation. And I mean, besides a great message, I have to say also the footage and everything was quite well shot indeed. And it did bring a tear to the eye, even your trailer, so thank you very much. This is the Country Telegraph.
It makes a lot of sense that the driest continent on Earth should be making a priority to rehydrate itself. You know, I can't imagine any land manager in Australia wouldn't want to be more attuned to their landscape and knowing how to rehydrate it. We're the ones that should be leading the way in understanding and sharing that. So having this knowledge and being able to apply it, I think is significant. And it's a practice and a method and principles that apply to every square inch of Australia. G'day, Charlie Arnott, 8th generational regenerative farmer here at Hanamino, Burrawa. I grew up here on our very conventional farm, and in the early 2000s when we had an extended dry period, we like to call them, when I was watching paddocks blow away in the wind and started to question, you know, was that a natural event? Was that of my doing? What could I do about it? And I decided at one point that no, it wasn't something I had to accept. What I really had to do, I felt very passionate about, is finding out how I could do a better job of managing the landscape. One of the wonderful things about natural sequence farming is that whilst we can graze our landscape as best we can, and we sort of time control graze or holistically manage our pasture, you're always going to be limited by how you use the rainfall. We can't influence a lot of the things. We can't influence markets, we can't influence the weather. But what we can change is how we have prepared the landscape for weather events. What we've done is a lot of work around our homestead, in the kilometres around where we are. You drive past every day, you can observe and see these changes in the landscape. You can see how water's flowing. You can see how this contouring technique is retaining moisture in the landscape and rehydrating the landscape. The paradigms we're talking about changing are large ones, and I always say that the first paddock you should change is the one between your ears. You know, that's where you hold your paradigms, and so it may take a number of steps, it may take some questions, and I think that's a really critical thing. You've got to go at your own speed, your own comfort, and that's again going to come back down to your budget, time frames, who's on board, and being really clear of your vision and what you actually want to get out of it. Australia is a vast continent, and again, nothing works without water. So it seems pretty clear to me that the farmers who are interested enough to look at these sort of methods, care enough about nature and the environment, they're generally the ones producing the better food, the more nutrient-dense food, because they're a cleaner environment, they're more robust, they're more resilient, the animals are happier, and generally the people are happier too. So anyone who eats food, essentially, I think, needs to support this sort of methodology, and let's rehydrate Australia.
Welcome back to the Country Telegraph. What a great person Ashley Avis is. And if you can go to those websites I mentioned, just rewind. We're on YouTube later and have a look at those websites. And we do need to look after Australia. Moving on to something a little bit lighter, and that's Queensland's quirkiest yarn bombing and jazz winter festival. It runs from the 16th to the 26th of July. Fabulous jazz talent, yarn-bombed trees, I'm going to find out what that means, craft exhibitions, great food. Markets are there to enjoy, and a great part of Queensland too. Our guest is Pam Burley, the event coordinator of the Jumpers and Jazz in July Festival on the Southern Downs. Pam has been on the Jumpers and Jazz Management Committee since it became a volunteer-run, not-for-profit organisation in 2016. Now, the program coordinates 120 different events delivered by event hosts across 8 communities in the region. Think about it. That equates to over 220 individual event experiences to be enjoyed by visitors over 10 days. Pam Burley, thank you for joining me.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
What's your temperature right now where you are? Is it about 0?
Oh, I actually haven't looked out there, but I haven't checked the temperature. But yeah, there's a little bit of white on the ground out there.
Good idea. By the way, where are you?
We're in Warwick.
Oh, Warwick. I know Warwick.
Yeah, so Warwick's about 2 hours. As the crow flies, it's southwest of Brisbane. So it's an easy drive from the city out to the country. Cross over the Great Dividing Range at Cunningham's Gap, and you've got this beautiful fertile valley used to be called the Darling Downs, and then it's split off to the Darling Downs is a larger region, and we are in the local government area called Southern Downs.
Absolutely brilliant. I'm just thinking about the festival, and it's a volunteer-run, not-for-profit organisation. I think that means in English it means a lot of people work very hard for no money. Is that about right?
Got it in one. Like people sometimes say to me, "Oh, why don't you pay someone to do this job?"
Yeah, me.
You wouldn't have enough money to pay for the amount of hours that we do. So we have 7 people on our management committee, 4 plus 4 subcommittee roles. That's just for Jumpers and Jazz Inc. So we're the overarching organisation that is responsible for delivering the whole festival. But within that, as you expressed there, we have 43 other event hosts who will deliver either 1, they might deliver 2, they might deliver 6, they might deliver 10. We have an event host on this year that's doing 10 days of different events in her cafe. So it's just so exciting to see the level of community involvement and the community sense of ownership in Jumpers and Jazz is something we're very proud of.
The name Jumpers and Jazz, tell us about that.
So the history of Jumpers and Jazz goes back to 2004, it would have been 2003 actually when the discussions happened. Warwick was experiencing a streetscape where they were refashioning it. They were taking all of the ugly old wires and the really old infrastructure of the plumbing and everything, and just redoing all of that. And they put in all these lovely trees in the CBD, which of course were deciduous. And so the art gallery director at the time, Audrey Hoffman, amazing lady, was sitting around with some colleagues. I believe they had a little red wine in their hand when they were talking about it, and saying how, the trees are they're cold in winter because they've lost their leaves. So wouldn't it be great to put jumpers on them? And it kind of started as that, and matched with that was Warwick historically is very much about sport. And so the artistic side of things is not really, culturally, had not really been high profile in our community. So Audrey was always under pressure to actually get the more increased in activity into the gallery. So she very wisely said, you know what, let's take the gallery to the people. So let's dress the trees, let's get the people in to dress the trees. So it just started this instant increase of community participation back in 2004. When we look back, the program was actually written on the back of a DL, the activities, the events that were run. Now we have I'm going to say, I'm not sure, I think it's about 40 pages of events in our calendar. So it's huge.
Enormous.
Yeah, it's huge.
Do you give the sherry bottle a bit of a run for its money?
I'm not game to do that. There are times when we're really tired and it's like,
Oh, come on, let loose. Let loose.
my thing's the Malibu. If I'm really tired and I want something, it's like, can I have a Malibu and Coke, please? Yeah.
Look, if you hear a knock on the door, it's me, because I haven't had that for ages, but it's a magnificent drop, isn't it?
It sure is. It sure is. That takes me back to my teenage years, actually. I was introduced to it.
Anything that gets us back there, we don't
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
But the denial is magnificent. Tell me about yarn bombing. What the hell is yarn bombing?
Okay, so yarn bombing, interestingly enough, began in 2004 globally. And we were there. We were right there at the very beginning. So it basically means that you knit or crochet an item, you make things, and basically the trees are actually dressed in fibre art. So it's just it's creative, it's colourful, our Yarntopians actually create a whole large-scale installation. So it's basically a fully immersive experience where you walk into a room that has been yarn bombed completely. This year it's called Submerged, so it's a little experience going under the sea.
Incredible. And again, you can appreciate it more with a couple of tipples of Malibu.
Well, we are in wine country here. The Granite Belt is famous across the world for its wine. So we do have some fabulous wineries here, and they are actually, we will have wineries, local wineries, selling their wares at the festival as well.
Absolutely fantastic. Tell us about some of the jazz and the performers.
Yes, so we're very proud of the lineup that we have. So, as I said, Warwick is historically been a country. It's country. We're famous for our rodeo. So, lots of country music here. Not so much jazz. And that was another reason why Jumpers and Jazz was created, was because the play on the JJJ, Jumpers and Jazz. It was initially Jumpers and Jazz and Jalopies in July. And then they dropped the Jalopies idea for a while, but was picked back up again, but didn't go back into the title.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? I just think and we talk about regional, rural and outback Australia. These events are so important for the community, not just for, bringing people in, the blow-ins, but it's so important for the community. If you didn't have these events, do you think, say, for example, Warwick would be where it is today?
Oh, I can humbly say no, it wouldn't. Because Warwick actually has a lot of events, and we've just been part of a community engagement exercise with our local council, who are actually formulating a tourism strategy. And we talked about the fact that actually what is our strength is our events. We have Morgan Park Raceway here, which hosts amazing events. There are car and bike events every weekend. We have equestrian polo cross. We have the cultural events like ours, Leeburn Sprints. We have the Celtic Fest. We have Apple and Grape. We have Snowflakes. So there's a lot of high profile events that happen throughout a calendar year, and that just brings people in. One of our biggest struggles as a festival is actually being able to accommodate people, because there's not enough accommodation for the people who want to be able to come to this festival.
Maybe another caravan park.
Well, what we are doing? What we are doing is encouraging people to bring their wheels with them. So if you've got a caravan, you can come out. We've got fabulous commercial caravan parks, which at this stage are full, unless there's cancellations. But we also have our show societies and recreation grounds that are registered tourist parks, so they can accommodate a lot of people. And we do encourage people, if you've got your own house on wheels, bring it, come and stay. You will not be bored if you stayed the whole 10 days. But if you don't have a van and you'd like a camping experience, there are opportunities, organisations called Camplify or Apollo, where you can rent or hire a caravan and have a camping experience as well as an amazing quirky winter experience.
And even your front lawn.
Yes, well, yeah.
Roll up.
Yeah, well, we actually have 26 acres here, Mike. So
that's pretty good.
There's a lot of ground can be covered, but we do encourage our locals. Be ambassadors. Invite your friends, invite your family. And we're all just so proud that Jumpers and Jazz last year brought in about 3.3 million into the region.
Wow.
Economically, but also equally important, which you can't measure on a scale or a frame, is the benefit it brings socially to this region, to our community. If we said we were not going to do Jumpers and Jazz, we would have devastated people. It's like, what will happen to my tree? Like, I have to do my tree. People have real ownership of these trees because the trees are the heart of the festival. They sit physically in the heart of the CBD, but they're also the vibrant heart of what the festival represents. And now we're growing it out. We're taking it out to the smaller communities. We're so proud of our little communities around the region that have jumped on board, and they just love it. Examples like Freestone Community Hall, they have a community country breakfast on the first Saturday, and they are turning people away at about 450 serves.
Oh my goodness.
That's right. And so they then they divert those people who can't be fed up the hill and across the road to the machinery shed, which has got all historic machinery and things in there, items in there, and they feed them, they do a barbecue. So Freestone is a beautiful example, and we've got the smaller communities are picking up on it as well, but they yarn bomb a different item every year. They started out, they yarn bombed a tractor. Now they've yarn bombed windmills and outback dunnies and water troughs and horses, and we're waiting to see what they're going to do this year. It's always a surprise, and they can't tell us because it's a big secret. But it's always very exciting unveiling that. And now we've got Merivale is picking up the ante, and they're actually, and that's a great little spot to drop into when travellers are coming from Brisbane, because it's just over the top of the gap, and then you can just turn into this lovely little village, and they're starting to yarn bomb. They have been a couple of years now, but it's growing in the amount that they're doing. And then we've got flip over to the other side of our region, to the western side, and we've got Pratton, little community, and they have their local shop there is called the Gold Bar and Grill, and they are yarn bombing a miners' camp. They're first time event hosts, and they are a beautiful example of community ownership. We went out and saw them the other day and did a little let's have a yarn clip with them and all their volunteers, and some of those ladies that they've brought together to create their yarn bomb scene have said, I just love this. I didn't know anybody else. I didn't know these ladies before, but now they're chatting around the table and they're sharing stories. That's the true value of Jumpers and Jazz locally.
Absolutely fantastic. If somebody wants to find out more, now is accommodation all booked out, or is it still?
Accommodation, I won't say it's all booked out, but what we do say is do go in there. People do cancel, through illness or whatever. Please try to come, but think beyond the centre of town. Think about the alternatives, like we said. For some people it might be like seeing if there's anything available in Stanthorpe or Toowoomba. is a great. It's only like 50 minutes away, really. But also think about the whole idea of doing something that bit different, getting a van and go van or rent a van and join that camping experience. We'll be having a shuttle going backwards and forwards from the showgrounds for people who don't really want to walk too far. But and just come and immerse yourself in this festival, because you will, I promise, you won't be disappointed.
How do they find out more about it?
Well, you can go to our website, which is Jumpers. Just if they just do a Google search, Jumpers and Jazz in July, it'll come up very easily. And we also have a Facebook page. Just do a search in their little search button. Just do Jumpers and Jazz in July, same thing, it'll come up. The website has got a full program online. Like our full program is 52 pages, and I think there's about 47 pages, I think it is, of events. We have an events page, an everyday events page, so they can just go in and go, well, that's happening every day. So it doesn't matter what day of the 10 days you come, there will be tons to see.
And your favourite, I mean, I can't have favourites, but if you were to pick a favourite, a couple of, say, the top couple of acts, which of the jazz performers really tickle your fancy prior to a couple of drinks and after a couple of drinks?
Oh, well, look, I have to say, they are my colleague Bet, who's our media coordinator, who will be listening in this morning. Hi, Bet. We used to be the jazz tragics before we got on the committee. We used to go through and go, oh, so much jazz, so little time, and we would work out what we would do every day and every night, and we would just fully immerse. Now we're just so busy doing it all. It's kind of like, oh, is there music playing over there? But wow. I have to say, some of the really great favourites, not just of us personally, but of the festival audience, would have to be like Desi D and the Stingrays. They do Resurrected Rhythm and Blues, high energy. They're great for the Grand Auto display. So people who love cars and historic cars, come to the Grand Auto on the 19th, Sunday the 19th. It's a great day activity that you can do, explore over 200 and something vehicles statically displayed in the street. On that day too, we even have a dash hound race. So that in itself is very appealing to a different sort of audience.
Well, you need a drink if you're going to get involved in that thing. They have a mind of their own, those sausages with legs.
They do indeed. And yeah.
Yes, and they always have an opinion, the Dachshund. I think maybe it's heritage or maybe influence from the owners. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I think it's probably a combination of both from my experience. But just if listeners want to just keep an eye out, we've got a little bit of a quirky idea we want to do with the Dashies, and that'll be surfacing through our Facebook.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Pam,
thank you so much for your time. Jumpers and Jazz in July. You'll probably see us there. It's not getting us there, it's trying to get rid of us.
Oh, look.
Because there's so many lovely wineries there, and I believe your front lawn, forget the rest of it, it's lovely, nice and comfortable, so we might just bunk there for the rest of our lives. Who knows?
You know, it is a beautiful part of the world, so we would love you to come. And I just quickly say it was interesting, a little coincidence that you had the beautiful story, or the sad story, but beautiful story of the Brumbies on earlier. And yesterday, just randomly, on my feed came up a little clip of some people down by the water, and this is in the US though, and all the Mustangs, as they call them, came up and were curious and were watching them and came down really close. It was very surreal. And so, yeah, and that just turned up in my feed.
It's very un-Australian and very inhumane what we're doing, and this is not how humanity should be. And I think we need to take I always go on about the bush, but I think it's our last bastion of what we used to be, and we don't want to lose that. Government is trying its best though to do what it can to to make life almost impossible in the bush. But with events like yours and a few tipples after it, who cares?
Well, you know what? I reckon Aussies are famous for the "she'll be right, mate," and they take it in their stride. But Aussies also know how to stand up and fight.
That's right, they do.
And it's time to get up and to say, we run this country.
We do, and I always, and we better go, otherwise I talk more than you do, by the way. But I'm from the bush, and we always had a solution. We always had a thing called 12 gauge. Now there's not a rail line, but it always used to settle arguments, and then you go and have a beer later. Pam Burley, thank you so much for your time. Jumpers and Jazz in July, you can't miss it. Go to the website, and it's going to be an absolutely magnificent event, but also great for the community too. This is the Country Telegraph.
I didn't choose this life. I was born to live it. So was Dad, Pa, his dad, and his dad before that.
Come on, ladies.
You're supposed to be slowing down, you know. It's payback for all the free labour you got out of me as a kid.
I learned from watching my mum and dad and how they work together. So does my sister Sally.
Any trains? I know. Feet up.
I'll always remember these days. It's the happiest days of my life. Together as a family.
Oh, you're so lucky I love you.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that about right, is it?
I don't know how you're going to deal with all this.
Deal with what?
$6 million debt?
Most farmers are in this amount of debt. As farmers, we gamble with the weather every day, and it's a risk we take.
You have no idea what I'm going through. Maybe you should talk to someone. Oh my God, no, I'm fine. No, you're not, Alison.
You and your dad's coward.
Play a game of footy, all right?
Where's heaven?
What?
Where's heaven?
The sky, I think.
Can we go there?
Welcome back to the Country Telegraph. Jumpers and Jazz in July. Fantastic. Might do that one, not that far from where we are on the Gold Coast. We've been focusing, and rightly so, on the atrocities committed in the Kosciuszko National Park against those magnificent creatures called brumbies or horses, and it's happening right around the world. I am heartened and feel quite buoyed that Angus Taylor, the leader of the Libs federally, has gotten behind it too, and to stop this atrocity. Now, we'll have more in the week too, by the way, of the organisations that are pushing this and to protect Australia. It's a bit like that in Vietnam, I think it was the My Lai massacre, where they burnt this village down, killed everybody, burnt the village down. And the idea was that we would kill the village, burn it down to save the village. A bit like this, isn't it? The environmentalists they want to destroy the world to save it. And a lot of it's based on preferences or underhand deals, because it's all to do with money, or a poor education system. I'm not too sure which, or all the above. But Angus Taylor, absolutely brilliant. I'm going to play you this clip, then a track after it, and I'll see you after Angus Taylor and that next beautiful song here on the Country Telegraph.
Well, you might be wondering why I'm sitting on a horse, but this is what I grew up with here on the edge of the Snowy Mountains, riding through these mountains, seeing brumbies, and they're under threat right now. I'm opposed to this Brumby Cull. I'm supporting the brumbies, and I want the locals back in control of the brumbies here in the mountains. This is a part of our heritage, it's a part of our history, and it must be protected. The brumbies, the mountains, the heritage, the traditions. That's what I believe in.
Tell my fool I kept on running. Tell my mare I heard her cry. Tell the mountain I belonged here. Tell the wind I said goodbye. Brumby hoof prints etched for generations in the snow. I've watched the foals become the mares, the stallions old and slow. Here in the snowy mountains where my life began, across hills, ridges and open plains my fellow Brumbies ran. I've led them through winter storms, drought and summer rain, but I can't outrun what follows now, shield my family from this pain. My ancestors crossed the oceans, but I was born upon this land. These mountains are my birthplace, the Snowies are my clan. These mountains hold our memories, our family history. If home is where you're raised, then this is where we should be. Tell my foal I kept on running, tell my mare I heard her cry, tell the mountain I belonged here, tell the wind I said goodbye. Stay close beside me, little one. The thunder isn't rain, the sky itself is hunting us, and I cannot stop the pain. I gather those I love and turn to face the sound, though every instinct tells me run. There's nowhere left for us now. These mountains hold our memories, our family history. If home is where you're raised, then this is where we should be. I fall upon the ground, thunder again and again. My heart grows quiet as bullets rain. I thought I had more seasons, more rivers left to roam, more sunrises with my Kosciuszko clan before the mountains called me home. Tell them I was born here, my grandfathers fought their wars. Remind them that this was our home, the snowy mountains were ours. Tell my foal I knew her fear, tell my mare I heard her call, tell my foal I tried to save them, tell the wind how Brumbies fall. Tell my foal I kept on running, tell my mare I heard her cry, tell the mountain I belonged here, tell the wind I said goodbye.
Yeah, terrible, isn't it? It always brings a tear to my eye, and I think we need to get back to being what we used to be, being Australians, and caring about caring about those who share the land with us, who share Australia with us. Anyway, we'll have more in this hour, and I think we need to do a lot more. And I'm going to play a clip a bit later. Hopefully that will encourage you to get as mad as hell. Some of the news that's making news around Australia, Dononi, I think it's how you pronounce it, has struck two major Australian agribusiness deals, estimated to be worth more than $1.5 billion, acquiring Melbourne's Made Group, MADE, and buying out its Saputo dairy joint venture. Now, producers have been left to count the cost of selling cattle early and planting crops in flood-prone paddocks after the Bureau predicted a dry autumn and unfortunately kept raining. Wheat and barley prices, they've hit parity across Australian markets, wiping out $30 a tonne premium and leaving growers with no reward for quality. Now, if a federal election were held at the moment, it would be too close to call between, of course, Pauline Hanson's One Nation and, of course, Albanese's Labor Party. Support for Pauline Hanson's party surged by 2% following her National Press Club address, Please Explain, in which she attacked migrants and urged more support for hard-working Australians. So it's interesting. Now, if you want to find out more about what's happening around Australia, don't forget to subscribe on Facebook, Rumble, X, and of course, YouTube. This is the Country Telegraph. And welcome back to a Country Telegraph, or the Country Telegraph. Nice to be with you. It's a Tuesday morning, a little bit cool on the Gold Coast, but weather-wise around the country, it ain't too bad, is it? Maybe we'll have that El Nino. Maybe we'll have the rain will stop. But if you listen to the Weather Bureau, a bit like two up. Heads you win, tails you lose. I think it's called Ecological Grazing and Need for an EPBC recognition is what we're going to talk about today. Carly Burnham is an organic beef producer and owner at Bonnie Doon. Carly, thanks for joining us.
Hi Mike, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Is it cool where you are?
It is cool. We got down to single figures this morning, but it's it'll be a beautiful sunny day.
Always lovely though to sleep in sometimes, isn't it?
It is.
Pull the doona over the head. Anyway, we can't do that because we're adults, we're mature. And you're on the land, so you can't do that much at all.
No.
You're described as ecological graziers. Can you explain that philosophy?
Well, we live west of Monto in the North Burnett. So from the Gold Coast, we're probably about 700 kilometres northwest of you. And our property is called Bonnie Doon, and it's a 20,000 acre organic certified beef grazing property. And what it means to be an ecological grazier is we've really shifted our practices to be more in rhythm with nature and really deepening our observation and increasing biodiversity and having a lighter touch on the land, but also producing really healthy and clean green beef. So it's about ultimately changing our grazing system where we actually measure. It's sort of a blend of science and art and intuition, and we measure our pastures and understand how much yield we have, and only graze enough cattle to enhance those pastures and to not deplete or extract from the natural environment. So there's a lot of calculations, a lot of monitoring, data collection, but also just getting out there and feet in the soil and really connecting and understanding what the land needs.
Okay, big question, because a lot of farmers would be asking, can you actually make a living out of it? Because if you're not going to use all the land all the time, which, you know, because I'm from the land, and you always made sure that you utilised every inch you had or centimetre you had, your philosophy is a little bit different, isn't it?
It is, and this is the big debate in agriculture. Can you be green and still make a living? And we've been doing this for 16 years. My husband and I are both generational graziers, so my ancestors were the first free settlers in Queensland. They were the Zillmans, and they became farmers and moved up into the North Burnett region. So we've got generations of, you know, information, knowledge and practices and wisdom, and then we've actually added in some new and different ways of thinking, but also some very ancient ways. So in actual fact, we have almost tripled our production since transitioning to this more ecological way of grazing, which flies in the face of what a lot of people believe. But we have found the more that we give to the natural resources and the landscape, the more that it yields. The more rest we get into our pastures, the more the pasture is resilient and grows back. And actually we've undertaken one of Australia's first soil carbon projects, and in 2016 it was very scientifically measured, and it's a 25-year project, and we're still very much in that project. In 2016, we had our soils measured, 300 core samples from the property, taken to a depth of 1.2 metres, and the soil samples were sent off to a lab testing the soil organic carbon levels. And then in 2021, 5 years later, they were measured again, and it was proven that we increased the carbon in our soils, and we sequestered over 120,000 tonnes of carbon dioxide across our property. And this is a regulated, highly verified project and Australian carbon credit units that we were issued with the federal government. And what it really means is that these practices are improving the natural resources, and we're more productive as well. So it's a win-win, really.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I was on the land, we used to we had all the paspalum, or those terrible weeds. We would use Roundup, and now you read all the outcomes of research on Roundup, which is glyphosate, and what it does and all those sort of things. So what we are doing, though, we went through this period, didn't we, that we were going to rape and pillage the soil, and now we're going back. We have not reversed it. We've done the full circle. Do you see this the future for those on the land to actually respect the land instead of, as I said before, raping and pillaging that lot of land you have?
Yeah, I do, Mike, and particularly as the younger generations come into our businesses and take over the land stewarding, they have a whole different and a more ethical way, I think, of looking at the earth and at how we produce food. But also we have many hundreds of colleagues around Australia that have transitioned to, some farmers call it regenerative methods or natural or ecological, but really what it means is there is a huge shift of farmers and graziers thinking more about using less chemicals and trying to innovate and find ways, because it's better for our health as humans. And the thing, we always have options, and I think with the Brumby culling, that was a very emotive clip that you just shared. And we always, us humans, we always have more options, and we just tend to go to the easy, most simple known, probably economic option. But if we slow the pace down and, you know, do more research and deepen our connection to nature, we'd find more and different ways of doing things.
Yeah, I think it's an entirely cruel process at the moment, and it is not Australian, is it? I mean, if you ask a bushie, next up we've got a guest who has been shunted out of it, part of a group that have been looking after the Brumbies, the Kosciuszko National Park, for 150 years, and in the matter of a couple of years, if not sooner, they had all this knowledge, which was at the end they knew nothing. Government knows more, and it's not about that. It's about the obliteration of the Australian lifestyle, I think, anyway. And we don't treat animals that way, do we? We don't treat them the way they're treating the Brumbies at the moment. Could I ask you your thoughts on the EPBC Act?
Well, it's interesting that, yes, you're probably wondering why would an ecological farmer be concerned about it? But I think more than just my own backyard, and I think about graziers and farmers as a whole and as an industry and Australia-wide. These laws are going to impact every farmer in Australia, and what we need less of, we need less compliance and less admin and less downward pressure, and we need more incentives for restoring nature and more incentives for ecological health of our land. And it's something that the government can really be bolstering, is the nature repair market and the ACCU scheme market, and recognising the impact that farmers are having and can have into the future for emissions reductions and achieving the targets. And something that is of great concern to me, that is happening in parallel to how it will impact farmers in terms of how they manage their land and their practices, is that right next door to my property there is a application on Murray Watt's desk to the EBPC to remove 1,100 hectares of koala and greater glider habitat in order for a solar project to be established on this 5,000 acre property right next door to me. So I have been online and I've read that the EBPC Act changes are actually to also fast track and simplify renewables projects, environmental applications. So that's of great concern to me, that on one hand it's going to impact farmers and make things more difficult and not incentivise care for nature. On the other hand, to fast track wiping out potentially 1,100 hectares of endangered habitat. I find it, it's a bit like the Brumbies. I find it we've learned to work with how the natural world is right now and enhance it and care for it and have more kindness.
We haven't got any of that at the moment. And a couple of things, just on the environment, the federal government, along with the Greens, who I think are a bunch of hypocrites. The only green they like is and the teals. The only green they like is the colour of money. But in the US they have a thing called the EPA. Here we have a NEPA, NEPA, which has just been brought in to look after Australia's environment. You would think then, if they're looking after the environment and what is left of Australia, which is a great chunk, by the way, that they would put a stop to the renewables, especially on the Great Dividing Range, where they're razoring the top of them off to put in these giant windmills, wind turbines. And part of that is they're not stopping that at all. They're full steam ahead. These 300 metre or 250 metre tall turbines, and which therefore destroys the bird life, because they bats and the eagles and stuff are destroyed, hawks are destroyed, they fly into it and die. What they also do is 400 metres either side, the animal can't live because of the sonic waves, the ultrasonic waves from the wind turbine. And they've been encouraged, and they'll deny it till the cows come home, but they've been encouraged that if you see any injured animals there, or any animals there that are in the road, hit them on the back of their head with a shovel. And that's documented, so that you can't lie about that. And then if there's a bushfire, you can't get air support in there. You can't get in there because there are no roads. And so what happens is it will burn uncontrollably for days, if not weeks, sometimes months. So all this to save the planet. One would seem to think that they're actually destroying the planet first to save it. None of it makes sense. First of all, they attack farming, which is terrible, whether you're Victoria, New South, even the Queensland government now has brought in a law that they can acquire land whenever they want to. They seem to think that those in the land are the evil creatures crawling out of swamps. But the people on the land actually know how to look after the land, because if they didn't look after the land, they wouldn't have any business, would they?
No, that's right. The thing all farmers have in common is that we live off the land. We produce food for all of the people out there that arrives on your kitchen table from the land. We need nature to do what we do, and I do think it's quite contradictory that industrial scale solar projects and wind projects are experienced as green. I'm a very ecological, nature-loving person, and one might assume that I'm pro renewables, and my thoughts are do renewables well, do it on top of industrial buildings and on car parks and in cities, and also truly understand and think into the future. What are the unintended consequences of removing habitat and removing farmland out of food production? What will happen in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years' time? I just don't think our governments are thinking that far ahead, and there needs to be a better approach and more integration and conversation so that we can balance our energy needs and our food production and nature, restoring nature. And this is my point. If the government could really acknowledge, and the project that we've sequestered 120,000 tonnes of CO2, if more incentives and more emphasis and education and effort and money was put into farming and grazing to be more ecological, we could actually be reducing emissions as well. It's just, I think renewables are just an easy tick, an easy win, but they're actually, going to be. We're on the beautiful No-Go River, which runs into Waruma Dam out to the Great Barrier Reef at Bundaberg, and the impacts of sediment runoff and microplastics and chemical runoff out into the Great Barrier Reef, could be just devastating.
Yeah, and I do agree. Now, I don't believe in climate change, but I do believe we need to look after our planet. We need to make sure that we do not take and not put back in. We don't. And I'm very aware of the runoff, because we have been playing some bits and pieces on that. That is just pure destruction and sabotage of the environment. It's vandalism. So those sort of things we do need to. And it's always, if we can mitigate the damage on the environment, fantastic, but to destroy the environment to save the world look at the data centres. I'm going to play after this a data centre that's been built in the Tamar Valley in northern Tasmania. The data centres, when they use water, you can't reuse that water. They're poison. And if you store the water somewhere, it's going to eventually enter the water table, and then you're going to have poisonous water. But it's more, I think it's so hypocritical that on one day they, were talking about saving the planet, we're doing this. Next day they've forgotten everything they've been preaching, because the data centre is its exact opposite to what they have been preaching. But the data centre makes more money, so therefore they're going to push technology, and to hell with what we have with saving the planet. But then you have government who are like the two-faced, four-eyed monster. What they're doing with renewables and what they're doing with farmers and stuff, I think it's just, I've never ever seen an attack on Australia, an attack on the environment, an attack on the farmers as I'm seeing now.
Yeah, well, what do we want to be known as? That's what I think in these regional areas. Our slogan is the beautiful North Burnett. We're potentially transitioning to, the ugly industrial North Burnett, and we need to restore nature and restore our humanity and restore our communities, and and preserve our way of life and clean green food production.
I totally agree. Look, we have run out of time, but I want to do more of these. I think you speak an enormous amount of sense, and you are doing it from the coalface too, which is you can't beat that. Those if that solar farm goes ahead next door, we have to at least do our little bit to bring to the attention of the Australian community, make them understand, make them feel the pain that it will cause, and show you that first of all, if they want to do this, there are other areas. But you don't destroy the environment to save it, because once you destroy it, it's gone. Question is, do they really want to save the environment, or is all this smoke and mirrors? And we can talk about that later. If somebody wants to find out more about you, Carly, or about Bonnie Doon, how do they do that?
Well, we have a website, bonniedoon.com.au, and all the social media as well. We also have a farm stay, Bloodwood Cabin, so you can just Google that. It's one of Australia's renowned farm stays. So maybe you could come stay sometime, Mike, and
I won't leave.
Check things out.
I'll have to go home one day. Anyway, maybe a couple of years. Do I have to pay rent? Look,
you can work for your accommodation. You can
look at these hands. I mean, can you see why I left the land? These hands. I mean, it was just too hard. I mean, we had citrus, and you can grow this magnificent crop, and then you get a hailstorm, and it picks it before you had the oranges and stuff. And I thought, no, I can do something less dangerous, like jump out of a plane without a parachute, anything. You're doing a great job. I have to say, I think I admire you for what you're doing, and you must do more of these. It's Carly Burnham from Bonnie Doon, and organic. Isn't organic great? Doesn't it taste better?
Well, I think so, but I'm biased. But I just love that. That was a decision for my 4 little kids. They're 4 big kids now. It was to be putting more natural, less unknowns into our bodies and on our land.
Fantastic, good on you.
Thanks, Mike.
Have you been to McDonald's?
Oh yeah, I can't say I haven't, but
sometimes
not so much recently.
No, it's a bit hard where you are.
We're us humans, we're walking contradictions. We've got to hold both lines. We can't be purists, we've got to be real.
The old quarter pounder. I mean, it used to be a quarter pounder. Now it's in name only. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Mike. Good to chat.
Absolutely fantastic. Look, I was just talking before about in Tasmania, in northern Tasmania, is where it is, in the Tamar Valley, they're about to, or wanting to build a giant data centre there, which is just horrific if you think about it. Play this clip.
It's the new plan that has quickly become the talk of the town.
And we're very concerned that it's come so close to approval with so little community consultation.
Tamar Valley residents gathered today to discuss a bid by Firmus Technologies to build an artificial intelligence factory at Bell Bay.
The community is concerned because they don't know anything about the application. It's a 700-page application which is very detailed.
And there's just over a week left for the public to have their say.
It's just fair for the community. They've invested in this place. They own property in this place. They live here. They should be listened to.
While people here are concerned the Firmus proposals are being rushed through, the Greens are calling for a parliamentary inquiry into a range of issues related to the data centres.
Its appetite for energy, its appetite for water, its appetite for land, and indeed some of the implications from a community perspective are profound.
They also want to know how the government would regulate them.
The rules, the regulations and the laws have not caught up to be able to properly regulate this industry.
Firmus also has data centres planned for Wesley Vale in the northwest and at St Leonard's near Launceston. The three sites together would require 400 megawatts of power, about 1/5 of the state's total current usage. The government appears enthused about the prospect of new jobs and undaunted by the energy requirements.
It does require a lot of energy. Tasmania has a natural advantage in that space. It doesn't require a lot of water, as I understand.
A rapidly growing industry that could become Tasmania's biggest power user.
You know, that's a lie, isn't it? Create new jobs. Doesn't create any new jobs. I mean, you only need a man and a dog to run it. I mean, this is absolute government spin. I mean, these data centres don't create many new jobs. Just not there at all. One of our guys who reads our news is in a new movie. Have a look.
This is a 6-week tour. We are to collect and wipe any antiquated equipment, reconfigure servers, and bring this complex up to date. Any details, any specifics on this contract are on a need-to-know basis.
And we don't need to know?
Who decides who needs to know and who doesn't?
God. Okay.
This is just a layover, right? We're just refueling and then we're gonna move on to the multi-million-dollar research facility, right?
Let the dumpster fire begin.
You're not even gonna answer my question? He's not even gonna answer my question, he just walked away.
You okay, Sam? A weird noise in there.
Yeah, I think there's an air leak in the chemical tank.
This is Dr. Laura Caldwell. It is August 25th, the 10th day of our expedition. Our logistical samples have come back with some unusual results.
What the hell is that?
I don't know. That's number 71 on the what the frick's about this place.
Who could do this? A bear?
He crossed over.
No, that's not what this is.
What the heck, man? You see another bug?
What's up? This is a prank.
They're trying to get into our heads.
If any of you is pulling anything, I was knocking on Carol's door.
You know what I did?
Why are we here?
Welcome back to the Country Telegraph. I find it beyond comprehension why governments are attacking horses around the world. They are. Look at the US, 20,000 at least a year rounded up and sent over the border to be used as meat for pet food and stuff. Look at the UK. Starmer's gone, but still the same party. And they also want to get rid of these horses that have been in a particular part of the UK for hundreds of years, which is just appalling. And look at Australia. We are just, I'm shocked that Australians would allow this. Simple as that. And if I think about it too much, I get emotional. So I'm not going to think about it too much. Otherwise, you'll have a blithering mess here, which almost happened yesterday. It was terrible. Now, we have a special guest with very unique knowledge of the history and management of the wild horses of Kosciuszko National Park. Lisa Caldwell is a former member of the Kosciuszko National Park Wild Horse Heritage Community Advisory Panel. Now, Lisa has served on previous National Parks and Wildlife Service Wild Horse Committees. She was also a witness at the parliamentary inquiry on the aerial shooting of horses. Lisa has lived in the area neighbouring Kosciuszko for over 45 years. Her husband's family were first settlers in the early 1800s, holding grazing leases in what is now Kosciuszko National Park. Her family has been involved in managing the Brumbies over several generations. The local horsemen who managed the horses for well over 150 years were prohibited from doing so in the 1980s. Local horsemen showed parks and wildlife staff how to trap the horses and remove them at no charge. But now such experts are locked out, censored and ignored. They have helped NPWS, which is the National Parks and Wildlife Service, with search and rescues because of their unique skills, they have offered to take back the management of the Brumbies over and over again, but have been rejected. Now, Lisa's concerns relate not only to animal welfare outcomes, but also to broader issues of maladministration, transparency, procedural fairness, accountability, and the apparent failure to properly consider legal advice. Lisa, thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Mike.
Well, it's good morning, but it's a terrible morning. I did not sleep very well last night, haven't slept well for the last week, because this is an atrocity. And not only is it an atrocity, I find it beyond comprehension how Australia is letting this happen.
Well, you and me both. Yeah, and it's becoming a mental health issue with a lot of people too, unfortunately. And yesterday we became aware that as well as the 3 weeks of shooting that they are completing at the end of this week, they've just added another 2 weeks going into a different area. So, yeah.
It's horrid, you know, and again, I have to, I try and separate myself from the emotional toll it takes. What about the emotional toll it has for, say, yourself and others of the community to see this atrocity, to see this abomination of the human species and its interaction with Mother Nature?
Yeah, well, I've noticed with some of my friends that are not coping with it and they have to just walk away. And I myself felt like I need to walk away. My husband and probably half a dozen of us, we went bush only last week for the first week of the shooting. We went bush in another direction away from where the shooting was, just to get away from the internet and all that sort of stuff. So we were out in the mountains camping with our horses. But yeah, then we had to come back to civilization and reality and the circus unfortunately unfolding. And it's, for myself personally, I have to just keep on fighting and doing what I can rather than sit back and do nothing.
You mentioned civilization. It's not civilization really. I mean, it's not how, again, humans should act. Tell me about the history of the Brumbies in the area.
Well, it's such a complex and vast history. They started in the southern end, which is my area, absolutely in around the 1830s, where local settlers would have let horses go. You've got to remember there was no fencing back in those days, so people adjoining what's now the park, it was just considered a crown area that lots of horses were let go. And of course horses were very important back then and valuable, because they needed them for everything. And the same deal happened in the northern end in around the 1840s, I believe, by the McDonalds. And there's so many different histories. Ben Boyd, he owned numerous stations around the lower Snowy River. Then there was another fella named David O'Rourke in the Victorian high country just over the border from us, where he passed away and had 70 horses that were running around in what may have been a lease back then or something, I don't know. But all these areas now have been titled under national parks. So there's so much different histories everywhere, all around the park. You've got to remember the park's 3 times the size of the ACT. And I've often thought, if you had a great big rolling pin and rolled it all out, it'd probably be as big as Tasmania. It's a big area and vastly different ecosystems and environments. I personally see about every 100 metres you go up and down in elevation, you'll see that the vegetation changes, and consequently you have different native species of all sorts that change all the time with the different environment. So it's just such a big jumble of different environments.
Can you just tell me, I was going to ask you something else, but I want to know why have they shunned the government? Why is the government shunning and ignoring your decades of experience?
Well, that's a good question. We would like to know the same. Back in the early 1980s, they had a draft plan of management out which said that the local horsemen would continue managing the horses with a permit system, which we did. I mean, you've got to remember the cattle were taken out probably 10 years before that. But the horsemen still went in and caught brumbies here and there, either by trapping or roping or whatever, however they did it. And every area, again, the northern guys might do it a little bit differently to what we did in the south. When the plan of management was actually gazetted, it had flipped and had prohibited us overnight. So there was no public consultation whatsoever. So we were kicked out overnight without even knowing it for a couple of years. And then we would say to them, well, who's going to manage the horses? And they told us that the horses didn't need management. They had negligible impacts and that they would look after them. So as the years went on, we occasionally went in and sneak in and get a few here and there. But by 2000, there was a dozen horses that had gone from the Thredbo area up onto the Ram's Head, which is getting up into the alpine country, and they didn't want them up there. So they asked us for help, and which we offered to do. We agree that they shouldn't be in those fragile alpine areas because they are unique and very different, and most horses don't go there because it's covered in snow in winter, etc., etc. But these were a couple of young colts that went up there, and of course it was also during drought. So, they were looking for better feed, etc. So we did trap those horses for them, and everything was pretty good. We were getting on really well with national parks, and then they decided that they would go further afield and start removing horses in other places after saying to us, no, they were only interested in the alpine horses. And then they just kept trapping them, and which is not a good thing to do because it causes a phenomenon called compensatory reproduction, so they will breed up exponentially if you keep trapping them. The same thing happened after the 2003 fires. About 50% of the horses were wiped out in the fires, and so consequently it's a phenomenon that I call it a survival instinct, where they go into a survival mode, so they will breed up exponentially, and it's common in lots of species, not just horses. But during that phase, national parks just kept doing it and kept doing it, so it didn't stop. So yes, they did breed up for a time, but once they were left alone for a couple of years, they sort of balanced out and got back to their natural numbers, which we believe was in early 2000s and is less than now, around that 3,000 mark, and that's how they got that figure that they should keep that. But then there was talk of lots of trapping, removal, and the people like the Invasive Species Council and other extreme green groups were screaming for their eradication, and so national parks commissioned their own heritage assessment with their own heritage consultants, which identified the horses as having significant heritage value, with heritage listing of anything, a house or a building or whatever it is. There's a criteria that you need to meet at least one to qualify, and this assessment said that they qualified 5 out of 9 of the criteria, so they had significant heritage value, and that's at the national level. So that's when we started lobbying Barilaro to get the heritage legislation.
In 2018, I can read this, the then New South Wales government passed the Kosciuszko Wild Horse Heritage Act, known as the Brumby Bill. Now, this was recognised the cultural value of the wild horses in the national park. Why was it repealed in 2025? And I see that the Invasive Species Council, that truly, and the more I look into this, and we're going to do some stories on them, we're going to put them under the spotlight, because they would, none of it makes sense. It smacks of something that's not quite right, doesn't pass the pub test. But regardless, why was it repealed in 2025? And I see that all protections for wild horses will cease under a new plan in 2027.
So I believe the invasive was that, and they have been lobbying hard, which they lobbied Dr. McGair from the Wagga electorate, I believe, to carry this bill. After Penny Sharp had already said that they weren't interested in doing any of that, as well as the Labor government had also said in 2018 that they would never reintroduce aerial shooting. So, yeah, your guess is as good as mine. Like I said, the Invasive Species Council are a very well cashed up lobbying group, and they have a lot of influence, obviously. They have very close connection to the minister herself, so it seems that they get what they want.
I'm just going to read this. This is horrible, and I want to add to it. It said a bunch of horses were sent to the knackery, 109 were shot in the yard, and the yard 70 were euthanised, and 17 recorded as other deaths. So what we're talking about is a lump of meat. Horses aren't that. Brumbies aren't that. How intelligent are these beautiful creatures?
Oh, they make wonderful horses. I mean, not all of them. Sure, there can be some that aren't real flash, but they make the best kids' ponies. They use them a lot in riding for the disabled, for example. What I'd love to see one day is for them to be used with rehabilitation with ex-veterans, for example. They do that in Colorado with the prisoners. But, the return vets, which I know they are already using horses, but the Brumbies would be ideal because they've got no baggage and no history. with humans. So they're a clean slate. They're the easiest horses to break in. Some people say they're not. I personally, the first horse I ever broke in was a Brumby. We use them as pack horses. They're terrific because they're such good doers. They have got great feet. They're really good walking horses, and they can cover some country and they're good to ride. I mean, they get to be, a lot of them are a bit small, but once they get out of the park and onto some good pasture at home, you can grow them up if you get them young. So yeah, they're.
I just find the Invasive Species Council. I saw a video of the CEO, and remove the emotion. You cannot remove the emotion. If you remove the emotion from this, then you're not worth sharing the air that I breathe. The Invasive Species Council are the most powerful advocate for lethal culling, including the aerial shooting. Now, there's only talk, that they have undue influence on Minister Penny Sharp. We actually have looked into that, and it is it doesn't pass the pub test, Penny Sharp. She's a minister for climate change. Again, there's another big question mark. Climate change, energy, the environment, and heritage in New South Wales. She's also the leader of the government in the upper house. This council, the Invasive Species Council, ISC, they would seem to be like all the other dim-witted departments or organisations that determine. By the way, they're they're not a government sponsored organisation, but yet they're determining how Australians are going to live. So one would ask questions why they're like that. And one of the investors or head of their investing head of the corporation is based in Philadelphia. So anyway, lots and lots of questions to be asked. We will be asking those, and we want to find out more about this. Doesn't pass the pub test, but the Invasive Species Council. And don't forget, we have children watching. But what's your thoughts on this organisation?
I don't think you want to know my thoughts on this organisation. I think an NGO organisation like this, to manage introduced species is probably not even needed, really. That's what governments, Department of Primary Industry, etc., should be doing. But I don't think farmers can get grants from the Invasive Species Council to help them eradicate their species that are, deer or pigs or whatever that are on their place. If they were a group like that, they might be worthwhile. But the problem that I have with them is the propaganda and, to be frank, lies that they are telling about the Brumbies. We are not bleeding hearts. I'm not a bleeding heart by any means. I'm not an animal liberationist or anything like that. I represent the local mountain horsemen who are, some of the toughest men around, and it's really distressing and shocking for them what they are seeing. And, like I'm a licensed shooter. My husband is also a hunter. All of our friends are. I've got our mates are that ride with us are butchers. We kill our own meat. We're not bleeding hearts. And I know there's a few people out there, particularly in the farming world, think that, we're all just a bunch of bleeding hearts that are crying for the ponies. Well, that's not the case. They are our heritage. They are our identity in the mountains. And the way that they are killing them is nothing but inhumane and cruel. What a lot of people don't realise is, sure, they do a lot of shooting up in the top end of horses, which is on privately owned cattle stations, so they are competing with the grazing there, but there's no competition here except for, a few kangaroos, and you'll find that there's probably more kangaroos out on our lands than there is in the park because it is so scrubbed up and dense bush. When you ride through some of the park areas, it's notably different when you go into a horse area to when you're not in a horse area in those dense bush areas. It is just deathly quiet. There is no life, there is no birds, and as soon as you get back into the Brumby areas, life awakens you again. It's you can cut it with a knife. It's so blatant. But also the way that they're killing, and I'm sorry if there is kids watching, but there was a study done in 2017 by a man named Jordan Hampton, who did was called, I can't think what it was called, but it was on the welfare of aerial shooting horses, and it was done in the Northern Territory and Western Australia, and they shot 920 horses. So these shooters and these chopper pilots, etc., would have been known that they were observed and under heavy scrutiny to watch exactly what they're doing to find out how cruel or not cruel it is to shoot these horses. It concluded 63% was an acceptable instant kill. So that means 37% wasn't. And that is in open desert, clay pan terrain with no trees against, and now they're trying to tell us that Invasive Species Council are trying to tell us that the horses are dead within 5 seconds, that it's humane in the Snowy Mountains, in mountainous, steep terrain, dense forest with trees that are 40 metres high. It's just obscene, the stuff that's coming out of them. In the study that was done up north, the helicopters were actually flying 2 to 10 metres from the ground, or from the horses rather. There's no way in the world you can get that in this terrain here. Plus they're galloping along flat, open desert country. The horses here might be galloping along even some open plains, but it's certainly not flat. We're finding broken legs and necks, and so they're dead before they even get shot from that. It's just torturous. Now, they're getting away with it because national parks have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on security, I believe, so nobody could access these areas when it was happening. They were closed from June until October. They had security on all the roads around. You couldn't even pull up on the highway without getting told to move on by park people. So, but a few people did sneak in here and there and got not footage of the actual events, but certainly of the aftermath. Yeah.
I think, and I'm not a bleeding heart by any stretch, but I think this is so un-Australian, and the attack on the environment by probably all governments in saving the world. We're going to plonk up all these monstrosities and destroy the environment doing so, and then the attack on those on the land. It's just appalling.
Well, it's not just attack on the horses and us on the land and the farmers, it's our heritage.
It is.
As far as we are concerned. Obviously, we haven't got cattle in there anymore, but it is a major part of our heritage. But it's the way they've gone about it. Like, I don't know what word to use other than corrupt. I don't know if you recall the Guy Fawkes massacre of the horses back in 2000, where RSPCA actually prosecuted national parks. And Bob Debus, the Environment Minister, banned aerial shooting in national parks since then. So there was a 23-year ban on it. That was because they were riddled with bullets, and a couple of horses were found a week or two later still alive and getting around. That's how it all started. But they claimed that, they didn't do that. So now, so after that, Department of Primary Industries did reviews with expert vets and all that sort of thing, and they've come up with these standard operating procedures, which are Australian standard, and they recommend no shooting in mountainous areas, no shooting in spring foaling season. They also recommend that the shots are head shots or heart shots, and they even have a diagram showing exactly where that is, just behind the elbow between the front legs of a horse is the heart. So just behind the elbow is where you aim, and of course between the eyes. But of course, national parks couldn't comply with that. But even though that's the standard operating procedure that was advertised in all the drafts for everybody to comment on. But meanwhile, after the public consultation closed, they went and wrote their own. So now they have their own set of operating procedures, which has been kept hidden by the public, and it recommends shooting the thorax. So they're just shooting him in the back, in the lungs. We have not found one headshot out of hundreds of horses, dead horses we've found. And very rarely you find something you can be dead sure. I have a lot of background noise.
That's okay. It's probably coming from your connection, but we just about finished. Here it sounds pretty good, so I wouldn't know about that. Just quickly, and we're going to do we have another guest on very shortly. After that, I'm going to play a clip. How do we make Australians take note?
Well, other than, speaking to your local member, we've got to get rid of this government. I'm imploring the Australian Veterinary Association to stand up, because what they've been told about the situation is not accurate. They're not being told the truth. The RSPCA need to also step up. They have turned a blind eye to all of this. Expert vets that were working on the standard operating procedure with them were against the aerial shooting and said that it cannot be humane. Can I actually read a section from the inquiry to you by Andrew Mallon, who is a ballistics expert, former police sniper trainer with 40 years of experience, and also he's a member of the Australian Hunters International. And he warned the double lung shot cannot cause death for up to possibly 5 minutes or more. He says under the current system, using a 308, it could be quite damning to have footage, because it would show that these animals are getting shot repeatedly in a vital area. They continue running because the gunshot is not matched to the target animal. Selecting the lungs as a primary aim point is unacceptable and inhumane. And he said, I personally believe that a culture has developed within the ranks of the fast qualified shooters. They operate without proper independent oversight. And there's a reluctance of any of them talking about what's actually happening in the field. And he said the findings in the RSPCA smack of incompetence at best and collusion and corruption worthy of investigation at worst. Now, this is in the Hansard of the inquiry into aerial shooting. There was also another ballistics expert that backed that, said the same. There was also another two expert veterinarians in this area. One of them was actually on the scientific panel for national parks, who said that this could not be humane, it's impossible. And yet in the inquiry report, which was hijacked by all the Labor and Greens, none of that was ever mentioned. As far as the actual welfare part of the report, there is no mention of anything from these experts. There was no rebuttals, there was nobody opposing what they were saying. So there was absolutely nothing said about it. And that's just outrageous.
Yep, it is outrageous. I can hear that noise too starting to creep through. I don't know where it's coming from, but it is anyway. Can I I would like to do more of this. We have gone way over time, but I'm just I don't want to let this go, because I think it's an attack on Australia, and
yes,
we need to be heard. And I think to wind it up and say good on you and we'll move on, I think we need to do more of it. So are you okay to come back again in the next few days?
Absolutely, yeah. I could speak all day.
You actually talk as much as I do. It's fantastic. I mean, I always told that I talk too much, but I always have plenty to say, apparently. So I think we need to take note of what's happening. We need to do more. I'm going to play something at the end of the show And I think we need to get as mad as hell. And I think the entire country needs to say, this has got to stop. This is not what Australia is all about. Look, I'm appreciated your time very much. Lisa, do you have any sort of, do you have Facebook, or do you do some sort of publication of
Yes,
any
I do.
sort?
Yeah, I have a Facebook page, Lisa E. Caldwell. It's Leisa E. Caldwell. Yeah, I put a bit on there.
Good on you. We will look at that too, and we'll talk to you again.
Another thing that needs to be mentioned is the stupid numbers that they come up with.
Oh, it's incredible.
Cover that.
It is actually physically impossible.
It's biologically impossible.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, we'll talk about that too. Plenty to talk about, and I also want to get into the do-gooders who are or inverted commas do-gooders who are misleading Australians, and that also Minns. I see that Minns on an interview yesterday said that he wanted to. He wants the sure. It's very sad that the Brumbies are being shot, but he wants the park to be back to what it used to be, so everybody can enjoy it. Go for picnics, walks, some hunting. So I'm thinking, oh, really? So anyway, that's something.
It just goes to show how much he doesn't know, because hunting isn't allowed in the national.
Right, and I couldn't believe it. He was on with Ben Fordham, and Ben didn't say anything either, which I was quite surprised with. Lisa Caldwell, thank you so much for your time. This is the Country Telegraph.
So this is $1 million glass of water, which only gets dearer after I flush it. Take this, our sewage treatment plant. Quilpie was one of the first towns in the Commonwealth to receive this essential service back in 1938. In 1966 they upgraded it, and back then it only cost $9,000 to do that. That's not bad value. In 2026, to replace this will cost $11 million. As a community with less than 1,000 people, we just don't have that sort of cash laying around, which means our ratepayers would have to cop 1,000% increase on their rates just to keep their toilets flushing. That's a crap deal. This is a story we're seeing right across Queensland, from the city to the coast to the country. A water line breaks in Queensland every 73 minutes. Everywhere in Queensland, communities are sitting on old infrastructure that the state is no longer funding to fix. And the longer we wait, the more it costs.
Councils are sounding the alarm on Queensland's infrastructure cliff. We're calling on the state government to act now, before it's too late.
And back, and this is the Country Telegraph, gone right over the time, but who cares? I think we're talking about many things around the country. The only thing is that David Lewis Mackay has been waiting patiently in the wings. David, thank you for joining us.
No problem. Good to be here, Mike.
You're co-founder and director of Smart Soil. Before we get into that, you're in Margaret River, and Jen, who's the producer, said that is probably her favourite part of the world. Wasn't sure if it was because of the wine or the terrain, or maybe a bit of both. Tell me about Margaret River and why it is so beautiful.
Absolutely. So we have a bit of a mix of all the good things in the world. We're a biodiversity hotspot. So the forest here is absolutely incredible. We've got Karri forest, we've got Jarrah, and just the wildflowers and orchids, and just beautiful biodiversity all through the region. So it's a great spot to be sort of fronting up the mission of Smart Soil, and it makes sense to be trying to protect and promote this beautiful biodiversity we have.
Western Australia is a great state, except I don't like your footy teams. At the moment, they can go jump. Tell me about Smart Soil and how it started.
Nice one, mate. So, Smart Soil was founded in 2018 by myself and my brother, younger brother. So, we started originally just trying to promote, regenerative farming, for lack of a better word. So basically the health of the soil, healing dead soil, which we call dirt. And so originally we started off in the TAFE system. We were teaching a course called the Regenerative Methods short course. This was just reposition and pivot a little bit. So we went fully online, and from there partnered with Colin Seiss, who is he's a Bob Hawke land care winner and the pioneer and creator of a pasture method called pasture cropping, which is essentially sowing a cash crop into a dormant perennial grassland. And really from there, we just had a whole bunch of doors open up, and the passion just grew into something, a realisation of, oh my God, but how don't more farmers know the value of healthy soil? I mean, all farmers know that it's important, and we spend a lot of money putting chemistry and other things to prop up what are known as unhealthy soils a lot of the time. So really what we're trying to do is return profitability back to the farmer, and we focus on profit per acre rather than yield per acre.
Isn't it amazing how we do the full circle? We tried everything to, as I said to one of our guests before, to rape and pillage the land to get as much out as possible. We're sort of going back to common sense, aren't we?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just incredible to see, you know, how it clicks into place when people get it and it makes sense. You know, they're hooked, and they start their regenerative journey. So yeah, we've worked with farmers all over the country, some even international farmers, and at the end of the day, the principles of soil health remain the same. So whether you're in, you know, 6 foot deep black prairie soil of North America, or you're out in rangeland country in Western Australia, if you can really implement these principles of soil health, you know, we can see amazing recovery.
How expensive is it?
Really, the remarkable thing is there's a bit of a myth around in the space, and I don't know if it's peddled by the big big chemical companies that obviously have their business model threatened by this sort of farming methodology. But essentially, the myth is that there is a yield drag in the initial transition stages as we go from a conventional system into a more regenerative system. And I mean, simply, a lot of the times this just isn't really true, but there are a few caveats that we have to keep in mind when we're transitioning out of a heavy industrialized system into these more biological systems. So if we've been feeding our crops and our enterprise, you know, heaps of nitrogen and all our synthetic fertilizers for decades, we can't just go ahead and turn off the tap one day. You know, we have to slowly transition out of this as we slowly start to build the soil health back, which can mean potentially in that 1, 2, 3 years of transition, our yields may drag a tiny bit, but you have to remember that our input cost per acre is actually dropping dramatically. So we're seeing farmers retain a lot more of the profit at the end of the day because their costs are just so low.
I'm interested. I see soil sponges. I've never heard of that. And I'm from the land. Tell me about that.
The soil sponge is pretty much at the base of everything we work to create. So Walter Jenner, a soil microbiologist out of Australia, he's an absolute legend. Heaps of awesome videos on YouTube. I would recommend going and checking him out. Also does some really good stuff debunking the methane myth, as we'll call it, that is also peddled quite regularly in the big media. So the soil sponge is essentially what we're trying to create in a healthy soil is air pockets, and I've heard it being described as a cathedral. So we're trying to create cathedrals within our soils that have lots of space and air for air to flow, water to penetrate, and it's sort of like chocolate cake. A healthy, really healthy soil will look like a slice of, you know, really airy chocolate cake. And what this enables is when we do get a rainfall event, instead of the water just hitting the surface, causing more compaction and running off the land and taking our fertility and profit with it, when we do get rain, it's actually infiltrating into the soil, storing in the soil, replenishing the aquifers, and it's there available for our crop once they're up and going. So the soil sponge is everything if you want to be a profitable farmer, in my opinion.
And with the Bureau has mentioned so far they've gotten it wrong, which is not unlike the Bureau, but we are going to experience a pretty severe period of time, at least for 6-12 months, with El Nino. How do we protect our soils against drought?
By restoring that. The answer's not going to surprise you. It's a bit boring, Mike, but it's by repairing that soil sponge. So the best way that we can really is start to create that soil sponge is by living plant roots and diverse plant roots. So when our plants are growing, we're obviously those plants are pumping a lot of sugar into the soil. Those sugars or exudates are feeding the soil microbiome, and that is what creates the aeration and pockets and beautiful soil sponge. So if we have a green living plant, as you know, our summers out in Australia are pretty brutal. But if we can work towards having more perennial bases in our agricultural systems, then we'll have a green living plant through those dry seasons. So, for example, our flagship course that we built with Colin Seiss on pasture cropping is all about maintaining that green living plant for as long as possible. So he'll find in some of his paddocks now where he's fully restored his native perennial grasslands, he doesn't even have a feed gap. He always has a green living plant which is pumping sugar into that soil, keeping the soil alive even throughout the summer. So, I mean, if you can start to work on healing the health of the soil, we fix drought, we store more water and stop our flooding. I mean, we start to break this fire, flood, drought cycle that we've got ourselves in this country. So,
yeah, it's I'm just shocked at that. And my dad once said the more we know, the more we realise how little we do know. And we used to use Roundup and all sorts of fertiliser, and then God would come and pick our crop before we wanted to pick it, so we had to start all over again. And it's funny how we do the full circle, and we go back to, I suppose, common sense and respect for what we're doing and respect for the environment and just, again, common sense. Your Mind, Body, Soil podcast would deal in a lot of those issues. Tell us about the podcast.
Nice, mate. Yeah, so the Mind, Body, Soil podcast was really an effort to explore the connection between healthy farmers, healthy soils and healthy landscapes. What we discovered by having these conversations was that if a farmer was really, beat up, fatigued, mentally just not having a good time on his place, generally the property would reflect the farmer's well-being. So if the farmer was really struggling, generally the health of the land was struggling as well. And it was this really interesting parallel we picked up by going out and filming on country and seeing all these different enterprises. But all the places that we saw that were humming with life, you meet the farmer and they're also humming with life. They're really vibrant and excited about what they're doing. So it was really an effort to unpack some of the methods and a healthy, happy farmer, create strategies and to create a healthy mind for our body. If we don't have a healthy soil, the food we're eating, has no nutrients in it, so our bodies get depleted. And then, just tying it back to the soil. So really just creating some dialogue around these, I guess, what were woo-woo sort of topics not so long ago, but it really is coming around full circle. I mean, even, regenerative terminology and living soil, I think farmers are really starting to get interested because the cost of fertiliser, the cost of diesel doesn't seem to be slowing down. They're always having to put more chemical on, more inputs on to get a crop off, which means more cost at the end of the day. So farmers are getting less and less of every dollar that leaves the farm gate. So really it's been about talking to farmers that have sort of been down this regenerative journey, that are in it, and that have the strategies to help other farmers
absolutely
do the same thing.
Absolutely brilliant. If somebody wants to find out more about the podcast or Smart Soil, how do they do that?
Awesome, mate. Yeah, so we're on YouTube, Spotify, just search Mind Body Soils podcast. We have hundreds of videos up on YouTube as well. If anyone wants to go check them out with some of the best farmers in the country. And if anyone's interested in having us out to tell their story, please reach out by all means as well. I will also give our new application a plug here, Mike, if that's okay. We've through the years of building and being out on these farms, there's been a lot of anecdotal evidence of people being like, well, how do we prove what is happening out in the paddock is actually healing the land or leading to more profitability? So we've developed an application for farm monitoring, so farmers will actually be able to prove and keep track of their farm as they go through this down this path and sort of see firsthand like the profit savings they're having, the health of the land improve, and just to make their lives a little bit easier, because farming is a tough gig. And I'm by no means saying that what people are doing out there is wrong. I mean, it is a tough gig, so no judgment. We're all at where we're at, but just excited to invite people to come across and give this stuff a crack. There's real merit in it.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And the governments also need to understand, and big corporations understand, that farmers want the best from their land. As simple as that. And they do care about the environment. When something new comes up, I know that, I can speak from my father's experience. Oh, I'm not going to do that. We've been doing this for 1 billion years. And after a while, you keep hitting them on the head with a hammer. Finally, and buy a few beers after that, finally they come around, and farmers are very smart creature. They have to be, because if they don't look after the land, they're dead meat, aren't they?
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, that's exactly right. I've never met a farmer that doesn't love his land. It's and we're all trying to do our best at the end of the day. So, and there is a saying in the space, actually, Mike, that the hardest paddock to change is the one between the ears. So,
I'm going to use it. I think that's brilliant. Thank you very much, David. We'll do more of these. I want to go through your videos and invite you back on again. We can talk about various issues, because I think what you're doing is just absolutely brilliant. David Lewis Mackay, co-founder and director of Smart Soil. Thank you so much for your time. This is
Thanks, Mike.
This is the Country Telegraph.
Mount Isa, as we can feel the pressure, these cowboys can harness the energy, they can feel the excitement. Think about what's going through this cowboy's mind.
The gate opens and you see the bull coming out. Honestly, I just hear silence. Seven different emotions go through you in about 10 seconds, and then they go on repeat.
This is when it hits another level of energy.
To be a rodeo cowboy, you want a bit of gravel in your gut.
Typical cowboy, obviously half mad.
And welcome back to the final bit of the Country Telegraph. A longer one today, but all worth it. Some brilliant guests, I have to tell you. I've learned a lot and shared some knowledge too. Now, we've been beating the drum a lot about the Brumbies, about what's happening to them in the Kosciuszko National Park. It is appalling. It is simply appalling, and makes me very, very emotional, to say the least. What can be done, though? I think we need to probably get angry, get vocal. We need to start beating the drum very loudly, because the old saying, a squeaky door gets the most attention. We need to become squeaky doors, get very loud. We need to get as mad as hell. An old movie back in 1976, jeepers, that's, 50 years ago. Peter Finch was in it. It's called Network. And a clip from that, and I've been watching it a bit lately, and a clip from that just brings home what we need to do. I want to play this clip. I want us all to get mad as hell, get vocal, start telling people that they cannot bugger this country up anymore. We have to stop it. We have to get back to what Australia was and should be all about. So this is Peter Finch, who's also an Australian in a movie called Network, and he is as mad as hell, and we should be also.
We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
They rode with a man from Snowy River. Now they're running for their lives. Tell me how a nation built on freedom lets its wild Brumbies die. What we are doing to the Brumbies is a fucking national disgrace.
Sun comes up on mountain tops, the frost still on the plain.
The ghosts of stockmen ride these hills
through wind and dust and rain.
Old banjo rode a mountain man,
and horses wild and free,
racing through the snowy high country
for all eternity.
Their story builds a nation,
their spirit still lives on.
But the country that once loved them
acts like they don't belong.
Now the sound above the ridgeline ain't a stock whip anymore. It's the rotors of a helicopter
bringing death across the moor.
The mountain winds are asking,
what the hell have we become?
When the sound above the tree line makes the wild horses run. It's the Brumbies' last run, the last run down the range,
while the people shake their heads
and wonder when things changed.
They rode with the man from Snowy River.
They carry legends through the years.
Now we're shooting down our heritage
while politicians turn their ears. It's the Brumbies' last run.
Australia's got to choose,
'cause every horse that falls up there
is another piece we lose.
From Kosciuszko to the valleys,
through every drought and flood,
the spirit of the Brumbies
still runs deep within our blood.
You can call it management,
you can quote another report,
but there's something
in these mountains that no paperwork can sort.
They're woven through our history,
they're stitched into our song,
and a lot of ordinary Aussies
think this whole thing's gone wrong.
The old stockmen are gone now,
but their spirit still remains
in every wild horse running
across those mountain plains.
It's the Brumbies' last run, the last run down the range,
while the people shake their heads
and wonder when things changed.
They rode with the man from Snowy River.
They carried legends through the years.
Now we're shooting down our heritage
while politicians turn their ears.
It's the Brumbies' last run. Australia's got to choose,
'cause
peace we lose.
What happened to the country
that stood up for its own?
What happened to the spirit
that built a nation strong?
You can't rewrite history.
You can't silence every song.
You can't tell a generation
those mountain legends all were wrong. Some things are worth saving, some things are worth the fight, and freedom still looks beautiful running through the morning light.
Hear the thunder in the distance,
hear the wild ones call,
hear the mountains crying out
before the silence falls. It's the Brumby's last run,
but it doesn't have to be.
If enough of us stand up
for what these mountains mean.
They rode with the man from Snowy River
across the ridges running free.
And if we lose the wild Brumbies,
what else will
cease to be? It's the Brumby's last run, and history's keeping score.
Leave the Brumbies to the mountains,
let them run forevermore.
From the Snowy River country
to the plains beneath the sky,
the horses of 1,000 stories
were never meant to die.
No,
they were never meant to die.